February. Craig Conroy, thank you for joining us. Ryan Leslie will get you a tie, and Scott Oake, over to you.
Ron, thank you. Yes, Craig Conroy, 22 years in the Flames organization, 9 as a player, 13 in the front office, and now the Flames general manager. Welcome to After Hours. Actually, welcome back. We were trying to figure it out today. I think it's your 3rd or 4th appearance on the show, right?
Yeah, I've been on here a few times.
Yeah, that means you're doing something right.
Well, that's
good. There would have been easier years in which to become the Flames general manager than this one, given that you started your job with, I think, 7 free agents, guys heading to unrestricted free agency. How did you view the challenge of either signing them or trading them?
Well, when you look at it, just getting the job, but luckily I was already here, so I kind of knew what was coming. But, you thought you had it in your mind, you'd like to sign some of the guys. You'd like to see where everybody was at, see what their thoughts were, and then you work through it and you kind of get a feeling if you're going to be able to sign them or not. And hey, it's a business. Like, we have a price that we had set in our mind, an amount of terms and dollar figure, and I think they had something too, and we worked through it. And then, I think kind of the start of the year changed everything a little bit. With the poor start.
All right, here's your year's work on one page, Ryan.
Well, yeah, Craig, I mean, we could look at all of the currency you've acquired. We could talk about the fact that you had coaches you had to sign as well, hire, sign, go through that process. And here is just the aftermath of all of those moves that you guys have been alluding to. What can you say just about, stockpiling? Because I think certainly in a Canadian market, everybody's so quick to judge, but this is the long game, right?
Yeah, I mean, I think everyone's going to look at the trade. The day you make the trade, they always want a winner and loser, and that's not fair. That's not fair for anybody. You have to kind of wait to see how everything. I mean, as you can see, there's lots of draft picks that we don't even know. There's no names next to those draft picks. So obviously we lost some. You look at the guys that are out. We lost some great players and good people. So, but we tried to bring some people back in and try to build with some younger guys coming back in, and also with some draft picks. So that's. Yeah, when you look at it, there's a lot of guys on there.
There sure are.
Your first trade, widely criticized at the time, and it's turned out to be a home run, right?
Well, yeah, he's referring to Sharon Govich, who we see prominent again tonight. What can you tell us about that trade that, it was your first one in this new role, so it looked like it has paid off, and I know it wasn't an easy one to kind of go through with Toffoli being a leading scorer, but you got a young scorer back.
Well, you're hoping, when you're looking to make a trade, we were trying to get a player and a pick, and obviously, when Yegor's name came up, we go through the scouts and everybody, and we're all watching video, and you're going through kind of all the reports from years past, and he just wasn't getting to play a lot in New Jersey, and it happens. And then all of a sudden, when we made the trade, you knew it probably wasn't going to, you lose your top scorer, and obviously a 30 goal man, and Toffoli and how well he played here. I had a feeling it wasn't going to go over well, but we got a younger player that we had thought there were some offensive upside, and now, to see him get his 30th tonight was pretty special, and to get a prospect along with it with a 3rd round pick with Sergeyev is pretty special too.
It felt good.
It felt good, yeah.
Another trade that struck a positive chord with Flames fans. You trade your number 1 center, Elias Lindholm, to Vancouver. One of the pieces coming back, Andrei Kuzmenko, widely viewed at the time as a salary cap dump, but he's delighted Flames fans with his high-end skill. Did you honestly think he could make the trade work for you the way he has?
Well, what we got to watch was high skill. He can score goals. Obviously, you don't score 39 goals in this league without having that kind of skill set. Our power play was struggling, and we're looking for someone to kind of spark that. And with his kind of skill set, I mean, it's hard to find. It really is, and he's been on a real heater here for us here lately with 2 more assists tonight. So, he when he came in, it was tough because he was sick right from the start, and then he had a little injury right after that. So it feels like he's finally starting to find his groove. And you're trying to take the positive. I know people will always look, what doesn't he do? But we were saying, what does he do? And what he does do, he can score goals, and he brings that offensive flair from kind of the blue line in.
Not of the draft where you have 9 picks, Ryan.
Well, yeah, I mean, all kinds of picks here, and I know everybody's talking about the R word, and I think that's where we want to go. Is it a rebuild, a retool? You have talked about a retool with all kinds of those picks that you're talking about, and maybe just the idea of the direction that you want to go with those picks. I don't know if it's part of the identity, what type of player you want to draft, or where you want to go with it, if you want to flip them. How do you sort of see this playing out as you go forward? crystal ball. I realize that.
Well, that's one thing with draft picks. They are capital too. If you want to make the pick, or you can find a player that makes sense to come in. Obviously, we're looking for some younger players. You probably want 23 or younger, and they're hard to make a trade for. So we may made the picks, but you never know where it's going to go. So, the one thing we talked about before the season was getting some younger guys in. I think Zari, Coronado, Pospisil's been they've been great for us. To see Dustin Wolf come up and play well for us. So those are all the things that were part of the plan when we started this year, and we were able to get him in. And I thought even Zari tonight playing center, I was really excited to see that. That's I know he probably wants to play center, and he's played wing most of the year. So we're building, and it is a retool. It's going to take a little time, and but we have some great veterans here too to kind of help these young guys along.
You've got something back then for each of the players who didn't want to stay here, and you've made the team younger. But could I ever get you to say rebuild? Will that word ever pass your lips?
Well, it's a retool. It's a retool, and I think the way we look at it with the players we have and the veterans we have here, that's why we were in most of the deals we were looking to get a player back, whether when it was Kuzmenko, Miramonov, we lost a defenseman. He came in and played really well. I mean, lots of minutes. It was weird because he had his major injury here in Calgary behind the net. I remember, he went down and we didn't know what was wrong with him, but he had an ACL injury, so he's still working his way back into it. So I do think there's still, each guy when we've made a trade, we've tried to bring someone back to help, continue build the team right now.
You were, let's go back to your playing days. You were once captain of the Flames until you turned it over to Jerome Iginla. That gets us to that relationship, which started off sort of on shaky ground, Ryan.
Yeah, I mean, take us back to the headlines and maybe the comments from your good friend, Jerome Iginla. But before this, there was some animosity. But when you came here, first and foremost, what was his great line?
We have enough checkers here already. So
I'm sure that went over well.
Yeah, I was like, oh, him, and I've heard what a great person he was, and you're never going to find a better guy. Tyson Nash, everybody that's ever played with him just loves Jerome. And I got here and I thought, oh, okay, we'll see how this goes, and it did not go well. I mean, he didn't really have any time for me to start. I understand. I mean, again, traded the leading scorer in the team, Corey Stillman, at the time, and I was a third-line checker in St. Louis, and that was my job. So, I think when you look back, I don't blame him. And actually, there was a coaching change my very first skate. So Don Hay was let go, and he was very close with Jerome. So it was one of those where it wasn't the best start for us. And I think he beat me up that year when he was.
I was going to say,
well, let's get to that.
There's a reason why it was a little frosty, too. You guys have some bad blood history.
Yeah, it wasn't bad. He jumped me.
Well, wait a minute.
I went after Mark Savard.
Here we go.
Yeah, I didn't even see him coming.
You're eating a lot of rights there, Craig.
Yeah, he knew what he was doing. I definitely was.
The frosted tips that threw you off.
But I did make fun of his hair and the thing, and that was all I really could say. He's like, "That's all you got?"
That is great.
There's one other thing we want to see here just before we get rid of this video, and maybe you can explain to us, Craig, exactly what's going on. It's coming up here.
This is in St. Louis.
Yeah.
How does this happen?
What's going on here?
Well, I don't know. I don't remember that, actually. You know what? That's where I can't remember that.
Well, all right. Your first full season with the Flames was Jerome Iginla's breakout year, 52 goals. And that takes us to Jerome's son, Tige, who is currently tearing it up in the Western League playoffs with the Kelowna Rockets. And I've got a question here if I can find it. We got a number of questions about Tige Iginla. So Jeremiah Lawrence wants to know, how hard is it to scout Jerome's kids, especially Tige right now? I'm sure there's some bias, good feelings towards him in particular because you know his father so well. Does it make it harder now that you're the GM and this is your second draft?
I think you go in and just, for the last 13 years, I've been doing the draft. So you go in and, Matthew Tkachuk we were able to get Matthew, but you see the guys that you've played with their kids all the time, and then what we've always said is we just have to put everybody in the right order, put them where they belong. And then when we start to draft, we'll go, down the list. And when we pick whoever's on that list, we're going to take the best player.
So the sentimental thought around here is that Tige Iginla would be perfect for the Calgary Flames, given, family bloodlines.
No pressure.
I haven't talked to Jerome or Kara or Tej about any of this. So, I think we're just we are getting, and our scouts have been out there working hard all year, and it would be. It'll be interesting to see when it comes to the draft how it all plays out. But he's playing great, and it's exciting for him. And you're excited for all the guys you play with when you see their kids out there. There is something special about each one. And with Tej and Joe, and they grew up with us, and my kids. So it's special.
From Jerome's initial misconception of you to another superstar's misconception of you, and that was Brett Hull, who, when you got traded to St. Louis from Montreal, he was scoring anywhere from 50 to 80 goals a year. Do you remember what he said to you?
Well, first he gave me his gloves,
right?
And the first game, because I had Montreal gloves, so I got to wear his gloves, and I actually scored in the first game.
Yeah, this is the goal.
This is the goal, yeah. And then he wanted those gloves back after because they were the ones with the goals, and he has about 4 or 5 pairs. So I actually didn't give them back to him though. I kept those ones. There they are. The old Rawlings. Yeah. Brett Hull was he was a special player.
What I was getting to was I read that he said to you, you're better than we thought you'd be, although you have a terrible stick.
He hated my stick. Well, it was my curve. It was more just straight, and it was kind of a big paddle just to take face-offs. So he was like, I can't even believe you can play with this, and he would always just throw them away.
Ryan and I are the last 2 people to talk about hairstyles, but...
Okay, we talked about the frosted tips, but take a look to the right. There is Craig with the blonde do at the height of St. Louis sports, right? Like, look who's in this picture. And you were a part of the Blues back then, and you can see McInnes. You can see yourself, Turgeon. Look who's
Mark
right up
McGuire,
front.
Yeah, Mark McGuire. Yeah,
I think that's Chaser in there.
Yeah, Kelly Chase.
It's a great. St. Louis is a great sports town, and they had the Rams, and Kurt Warner was going good, and obviously Big Mac was hitting all the home runs, and we had a real good team. And it's funny because Al McInnes used to make fun of my wife for that's when you had a camera, so she used to carry her camera with her, and even this night. He's like, why are you even bringing the camera? And then we took this picture, and I remember he was the first one to call the next morning. Can I get one of those pictures? So,
well, we're glad Jessie did have these because she provided this, and you can see the timestamp in the bottom, 2000, May 12th. So fantastic. Yeah,
we had a lot of fun there, and it was fun. And in the sports towns, everybody got along, and I was probably more friends with Jim Edmonds, but. Right. Prongs and everybody, but Big Mac, boy, that was fun to watch him hit those home runs. It was pretty special.
Okay, back to the Flames. Your time in Calgary was interrupted as a player, interrupted briefly by that stint in Los Angeles, about a season and a half. So tell us about being traded to Red Deer.
Yeah, well, we played in Edmonton the night before, and we were driving over, and we decided they had it all set up with outdoor skate, so away we went. And I'm kind of thinking everything, and being there, I was probably the last one walking off the ice, and as I was coming off, someone said, Dean Lombardi wants to talk to you on the phone. I said, oh, okay, no problem. So when I picked up the phone, he said, hey, Craig, we've traded you there. And I'm like, traded me there? Where? And he goes, not the Red Deer, but we traded you to Calgary, back to Calgary. So I said, oh, perfect. I kind of was excited, thinking, okay, it wasn't really going well for me in L.A., and I thought to go back, this is going to be pretty special. But then I didn't know. I quickly went and got showered up and got ready, and I was walking out to the bus, and it was pulling away.
No bus.
So I had my equipment, and literally there was like 3 or 4 fans. They're like, they left you. I'm like, well, I got traded. They're like, really? I'm like, yeah. So I just sat down on my bag in the warm room and waited, and they sent a car for me from Calgary to bring me back. So it was, it was a story for
thumb out.
No, yeah. I'm like, here I go. But it was pretty exciting.
So you end up back in Calgary after that hour-and-a-half drive from Red Deer, and here's a portion of a feature that Jeff Merrick did on the story of the trade.
I know what you're saying to yourself. Perfect ending would have been if Craig scored against his former team the next night, right? Come on, this isn't a movie. Wait, what?
Deflection, rebound, he scores! Craig Conroy!
Someone better not say, could you have scripted it any better than this?
Could have you scripted it any better than this?
I might have had 4 goals or 5 goals up to that point of the season.
And get in front, Conroy scores! Craig Conroy makes it 2 tonight!
2 against the team that traded you back to the place that would become your home. That is a movie.
It is. It was, you know what, it felt like it was meant to be. And I said one of my favorite moments in the NHL, I mean, all the stuff I've got to do was when right before the national anthem, they put me up on the jumbotron, and kind of the reception that I got was pretty special. So I knew I was going to do something nice that night.
February 2011, 6 weeks after your last game, you announced your retirement, and you were immediately offered a coaching job at Clarkson University, your alma mater in Potsdam, New York. Ken King at the same time offered you the job of special assistant to then general manager Jay Feaster. Why did you take that job as opposed to going home?
Well, it's funny. I think it's weird. I actually was going to take the other job, and Ken brought me in. He said, what do you want to do in the hockey world? What have you not done? And I said, I haven't won a Stanley Cup. He goes, well, can you do that at Clarkson? And I said, no, I can't do that. He goes, well, then you got to stay here. So I said, yep, you're right. I'm going to stay. And that was it. That was, I think Murray Edwards was on the phone, and I was sitting in Ken's office. So, you know, now here I am all these years later, and, you know, that's still the goal. The goal is always going to be to try to win a Stanley Cup.
That gets us to Potsdam. Correct.
Speaking of home, and yeah, that is Potsdam, New York. A population, I think, is just over 15,000, and there's where you grew up, right down this street. What's ironic about this, and maybe you can tell us, because there is a really neat and rare tie-in, NHL executives.
Yeah.
That's your house?
That's my house right there on Somerset. There's only 5 houses on Somerset, and that's Mike Smith's house on Somerset.
Mike Smith, the former GM. There he is.
Yep, former GM. So
of the Jets and the Chicago Blackhawks.
Yep, you have 2 guys that grew up in Potsdam, New York, and lived on Somerset Road, and with 5 houses, and we were both lucky enough to be GMs in the NHL. Pretty, you know, it was always a thing where I played in the NHL, and he was GM in the NHL, but now that we're both GMs, and actually I was with him last year in Albany, and we got to talk and have breakfast, and it's pretty special.
That is, and I would imagine a huge feather in the cap back home. I'm sure you can't walk down the street anywhere without the 2 of you coming up in conversation.
Well, I'm related to most people there,
right.
so I really can't go anywhere in Potsdam.
That's right. Good call.
The go-to story.
Yeah, everybody has one, right? And we've talked about this. This is the one I always get you to tell whenever we're in any audiences around us. So if you could, give us the best version of the story that you tell that is great. You hitting Patrick Waugh as a rookie in the head in a game, inter-squad game.
Yeah. So, I mean, Montreal was my team growing up.
Yeah.
So for me to go to the Forum, you know, I happened to be on Patrick's team. And, you know, back then we just scrimmaged the first day. So I'm literally sitting in the Forum thinking, I'm so excited. You go out, skate around, and then you get into the 3-line shooting just like they do here. And I got in the back of the line, be respectful. And as we were going through, everybody was taking the shot. I finally get to my turn, and the guy on the right bumbled the puck a little bit. He fumbled it. And then by the time he shot, I had moved in a little bit just inside the blue line. And you know when you just hit something pure, I'm like, ooh, that felt good. But as I watched it go, it hit Patrick in the head and over. And he kind of put his hands up and cleared his crease. And they didn't have the netting anymore, so he threw a stick over the glass. And I thought, oh, I'm so sorry about that. I'm trying to, sorry. And here he comes. I'm like, oh, what am I going to do here? And as he was coming, I'm still apologizing. And
you're thinking he's going to say, that's okay, kid, or something?
Yeah, I didn't quite know because he was coming faster and faster. And then all of a sudden he hit me right in the forehead with the blocker. And your reaction would be, obviously, I quickly tried to grab him so he couldn't punch me again. And when I grabbed him, my team in the scrimmage and the other team both grabbed me. I mean, it was
what
like...
an impression.
Yeah, I was getting thrown around, and people were yelling at me. They were going to kill me. Don't touch Patrick. And I thought, I'm not touching anybody. I just want to get... And finally, you know, there was no refs out there, so the coaches came out, sat on the bench. And in the old Forum, there was no... You know, there was no glass behind, so all the reporters were right there. What were you thinking? The booms were there. People were talking to me, and I'm like, I just want to go back to Potsdam. I've had enough of this.
But quickly, he did follow up with you, and it took some time.
Well, that was a lockout year, so I couldn't wait to go to the minors that year. And then when I got called back up during the season, when the season started, he actually called me in my room because we didn't have cell phones, and he said, hey, can we have breakfast? And so I couldn't sleep that night. I thought, what does he want? Now I'm nervous.
Well, he's going to punch you again.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I thought. And then sure enough, we got down there, and he said, what was the deal in practice today? I said, well, I don't really understand what you mean. He goes, well, you never shot one over my knee. I said, oh, do you remember in training camp I hit you in the head? He goes, oh, I was just setting the tone. It wasn't a big deal. He goes, you shoot as hard as you can. Make me better, I'll make you better. So
that's great.
Pretty special.
I love that one.
We got a big finisher, but before we get to it, I just want to get your thoughts on this. As GM of the Flames, your team was 25th overall coming into tonight's game. 25th, if that's where you're a finish, would give you a 6% chance of winning the draft lottery, the first overall pick. Of course, the further you fall, the better the odds become. But you don't want to see your team lose, although you wouldn't mind better odds. How do you reconcile the difficult position you're in as a GM when you watch your team play?
It is hard. I mean, and this is really hard for me even tonight, to see the guys play as hard as they did, to battle and not find a way to win. And that's what I always said. I want them to win every night. I want them to play hard. I want them to be special. And, I think if you do the right thing, if we win games and we're still in the draft lottery and the odds are maybe a little worse, you're still, in the end, we all want to win something. We're competitive guys. If whatever we do in life, we want to win. If it's, playing golf, we're out here in shinny hockey. So this is wherever we finish up. But I do want to see the guys play hard and play well and play for each other. I mean, I know what it's like out there at the end when you're not going to make the playoffs.
Okay, before we go, one of the great imitations of Craig Conroy. Watch this.
He's always doing that.
I like that guy. I know. I told him. No. Oh, no. Sorry, Connie.
I knew you had to do it.
I was on the take.
You do Brad Treleving well, too, if you want to do Brad right now.
After hours,
you kill me or Brad, it's fine. It's fine.
You're a good sport.
No, thank you. I appreciate it.
Was buddies. He right on?
He's right on. He's right on.
Too.
Yeah. He knows me too well.
I'm going to pay for this one. I know it.
I did beat him swimming, though. We had a race swimming.
By a hair.
And I crushed him. No, I crushed him.
Well, there's that. Close. All right, Craig, thanks for joining us. Really appreciate it. There's Craig Conroy, who in just over 10 months has transformed the Calgary Flames. He was our guest on After Hours, his first year as GM of the team. We'll return to Scotiabank Saddledome as After Hours continues.